Not so long ago, human beings lived in perfect harmony with nature. They would only take what they needed to live, even if Mother Nature was sometimes unkind. This could have lasted forever, but our civilization came, and almost all those populations have now disappeared. Desertification, genocide, assimilation, exile threaten those who are a vital part of mankind's collective memory. We have much to learn from them. Our own survival may well depend upon it. They are willing to teach us, but time is running short, for they are endangered civilizations. Kalimantan, the Indonesian part of Borneo, the fourth largest island in the world. The forest here is thick with vegetation, sometimes completely blocking the sun. Even in the shade, there is little relief. Temperatures of 35 degrees centigrade and a humidity of 90% combine to produce a suffocating climate. The waterways that lead inland are often dangerous, but the pirogue remains the only viable means of transport through the thick jungle vegetation. Since the beginning of time, the tropical rainforest was rich with an incredible diversity of animal and plant life. Gibbons, macaque, hornbill, orangutan lived under the shelter of the jungle canopy. Four 4,000 years ago, populations had to migrate from southern China and Vietnam, even from northern China, towards the Philippines and the island of Borneo. These migrants settled in the plains of Kalimantan and in the gigantic mountains separating Malaysia and Indonesia. We know these populations under the name of Dayak. The name of Dayak hides in fact a lot of differences. Some populations became sedentary, living in longhouses. These minorities called themselves Kenyas or Iban. They were people who preferred human heads to wild pig. They believed that the deaths of relatives must be avenged. These heavily tattooed, violent men decapitated their enemies in the belief that the victim's spirit would protect their clan. These Dayaks ruled over the rainforest. They made it a dangerous place to live, especially for their cousins, the Punan. A tribe of Pacific nomad hunter-gatherers, they have neither the tattoos nor the bloodthirsty nature of the Kenya. In order to survive, the Punan had to develop sophisticated ways of hiding from their enemies. They learned how to appear and disappear at will. Today, a handful of them still live in the rainforest. Finding them entails a complicated game of hide and seek. The biggest threat to the Punan today comes not from the Dayak headhunters, but from what is happening to the forest since the turn of the century. Deforestation has now become an all-out, highly organized effort. Indonesian law stipulates that for each tree cut down, a new one must be replanted. Still, the rainforest is dying. Towering mahogany and teak trees are replaced with fast-growing species hardly good enough for paper pulp production. And as the great tropical trees are felled, they invariably bring birds' nests and animal habitats crashing down with them. Bulldozers clear the way for a coal mine project. Experts guarantee 70 years of activity and the creation of 3,000 jobs. But jobs for whom? Local people? Or will the workforce be brought in from outside? How much of the forest will be destroyed to accommodate them? The battered trunks are dragged to the river, and naturally the money made by local people is not even a tenth of that earned by the middlemen, who make fortunes selling to big companies. Facing such massive destruction of their forest, men and animals can only flee. But where to?
My name is Ungit. I'm about 50 years old. I left the forest in 1982. Now I'm retired, but since I have no source of income, I help my brother in his rice field, the ladang.
These ladang are areas of forest cleared for rice growing in the traditional Asian way of slash and burn. The trees are chopped down and burnt. This enriches the soil and makes one poor crop of rice possible each year. When the field can no longer support a crop, it is abandoned and a new one started elsewhere. As a result, the forest is now scarred by hundreds of old ladang.
This village was created in 1983 to house the people coming out of the forest. In 1985, I had been appointed head of the Punan community for 5 years. The Indonesian government then put me in charge of welcoming new Punans into the village. No more than 20 years ago, our people were still able to live in the forest. It contained huge trees and the treetops blocked out the sun and sky. We were always compelled to hide in order to escape attacks from the Dayaks. So we lived permanently in the shade, and our skin was much more pale than anybody else's skin in the area. Life was in a way easy in the forest. There were berries and nuts to be picked, soko palm from which flour was made, and plenty of meat from hunting. In my time, the amount of game meant we could exchange a small surplus against the salt, clothes, and tools from Chinese merchants. But all that is over now. There's no game. It's impossible to live in the forest now.
Orang di sana masuk daftar di sini dari kepala
When
desa.
my people walked out of the forest, they were entirely my responsibility. They brought a lot of problems with them.
Semua orang di sana.
The Indonesian governors of Kalimantan encourage Punan families to abandon the forest in favor of village settlements such as this. Newcomers are allotted a small parcel of land to clear and offered the materials to build a small house. Having arrived 20 years earlier, the Dayaks have the upper hand once again, occupying the best houses and monopolizing trade. The 60 or so Punan families here must make do with far less. Crammed into the shabbiest houses in the village outskirts, they have little or nothing to live on, and without jobs, have little hope of improving their prospects. In such a climate, religion has lost little time in attracting new recruits. No less than 2 Protestant and 1 Catholic church are currently battling it out for the village's 1,500 souls, attempting to wipe out the memory of their centuries-old beliefs, and the Muslims are not far behind. The last of the forest nomads now sing in unison around the altar in praise of a new and comforting God. Clergy even make sure that the schedules of their services do not clash, since many locals remain clearly undecided and like to attend several.
Ya, itu masih banyak itu, Pak.
In my time, people would come out of the forest in groups of 20 or 30. The children had never attended school, so we taught them ourselves. But since then, the school has educated about 2,000 more. And there were the old people too. They needed feeding and looking after. And of course the adults who wanted to work and earn some money.
Apakah mereka makan nasi kah?
I don't know what they live on in the forest. But when they arrived here, they had no more meat. Everyone had to eat rice.
Rice does not grow in the forest, so the Punans had no idea how to prepare it. This radical change from their diet caused serious digestive and nutritional problems.
When I ask the Punans why they stay in the village, the reasons are always the same. Young men want to earn money, as do the women selling the rattan basket. Mothers think of their children who are still alive and free of disease. Young women want to get married. And this old woman knows that without the village doctor, she would have died long ago.
Some Punan forsake the forest only in order to assure the survival of their people. For the Punan in the villages, weaving is the only possible way of making a living. Traditional rattan baskets and mats bring the most able weavers enough cash to purchase essentials, and, if business is good, a few gadgets brought weekly from the coast by pirogue.
My name is Alain. I am no longer the agile young man I once was. At 65, I'm probably the eldest man in the community. I live very simply. I grow cocoa and ubi roots in a garden opposite my house. I left the forest in the same year as Unkit, in 1982. Two of my sons died very young up there. But in the forest, it's normal to lose one child out of two. I also lost my wife in the forest at age 40. I have not been back to the forest in many years. Because of my age, I can no longer walk the long day it takes to walk in the rice fields. Growing cocoa beans only takes a few hours per week. It's only a small crop, but it's enough to feed the two small grandchildren I take care of. Each month, once my crop has dried out in the sun, I sell 20 kilos of seeds to the coastal traders. I get $10 for it. Up in the forest, life may have been hard, but it was better. The forest was still healthy and full of wildlife. We would spend whole days at a time hunting with blowpipes, deer, stags, and wild pigs, as well as birds and monkeys. We were left alone, and I loved hunting very much. There was plenty of big game, and the animals were not afraid of our presence. We would kill only what we needed for a few days, plus one or two animals to exchange for essential items. This time is over. Once the forest was my home. Now I have no more friends. Just a small corner of land, a tiny crop, and almost no money in cash. In this village, the rules state that once a family arrives, it may not return to the forest. However, last year, 6 families broke the rule, returned to the forest without a word to anyone. Their houses remain abandoned, and they have not been heard of since. The loss of these families makes Unkit sad. He soothes himself with music. He starts playing it with his nose. This is a tradition unique to the Punans. A few hours later, Unkit pays me a visit. He has had an idea. He wants to return to the forest. Why don't we go back into the forest, he says, and see how our people are managing up there. Maybe you could even track down one of the families who left the village.
Lion's eyes are full of old Punan wisdom. He hesitates about returning to the forest, as if frightened of revisiting the past. Maybe he's right. Two old men like us alone in the forest have little chance of tracing a family of Punans, expert in the game of hide and seek. Maybe it's a wide idea. So I started talking about the old times, when we lived in our leaf shelters by the giant trees, when we hunted monkeys and captured babies for the children to play with in front of the hut. We had enough to live decently up there. I knew that Lion would react to that. Even if his legs are not what they once were, I was sure he would be mighty tempted.
The pull was too strong. I finally gave in. The next morning, I joined Unkit on the riverbank. We had unearthed our long-forgotten blowpipes and started to sharpen up the spearheads. Unkit even put an arrow into the old pipe and tried his luck.
The journey up the river is a journey into the past. Unkit and Lang rediscover a landscape they have not seen for ages. People rarely travel in the region. Lang immediately saw that in only a few years, the forest had drastically changed. The rainforest's plant life contains many medicinal properties, but the planet's second largest lung is being so destroyed that most of its potential will be lost.
All the big trees have gone, and since the Punans seek the shade of the jungle canopy, they must have moved to poor areas where the bulldozers cannot operate. But can they live up there?
Sitting on a bend in the river, this is the last village on our way upstream. We decide to spend the night here. Unlike our own village, these people may come and go as they please, dividing their time between the village and the forest. We arrive unannounced, just in time to avoid the inevitable evening rainfall, which pours down as regularly as clockwork each day. I have a cousin who lives here, and with traditional Punan hospitality, he puts us up. It's also a good opportunity for him to catch up on the latest news from the lower reaches of the river.
The next morning, we are off again. My cousin had warned us to be careful. The river is in flood, and such fast-moving waters are dangerous in a small pirogue. He lends us a second motor to help combat the current. After only a few miles, the state of the river is clearly worse than expected. Our tiny boat tips about dangerously amongst the swirls and eddies of the stream. We shall have to continue by foot. Two thousand animal species used to live in the rainforest before the environment was destroyed by man. A few birds and butterflies still live here, but also less attractive red ants and the inevitable army of leeches waiting to sink their teeth into a piece of fresh skin.
Vegetation, steep climbs, and slippery inclines remind them that they are no longer spring chickens. But the forest always takes its toll on any man, young or old. The Punan are able to move about unseen and unheard through the jungle. They have a special system of coded signs by which they tell each other of their whereabouts.
Unkit reminds me that, in order to find the Punan family, we must look for a piece of crushed bark, a broken branch, or a stick carved in a special way. Such a sign might either have been left for one of their people or deliberately for us. Unkit can't help talking and making a racket. Even if we don't manage to find them, the forest Punan have little chance of missing us. After a few hours, we are both getting tired. Stopping more frequently now, we take the time to admire the little that's left of the forest we love so much.
Sensing the arrival of the evening rain, they build an impromptu shelter out of banana leaves and enjoy the chance to have a bite to eat. The Punan have a kind of sixth sense, a remarkable ability to feel the presence of a living being. Unkit and Alain have been discovered. A group of fellow Punan have spotted the two old men. Having overheard them talking, they even know why they are here. An odd game of hide-and-seek then begins between the two parties.
On the top of a hill, I spot a mound of leaves, which can only mean one thing. Punan have been hunting here. They have killed a wild pig, but have left a part of the meat here, which is still fresh. They surely have left signs along the way, so as not to lose the spot.
นี่นี่
ตรงยานี่นี่เรากดเลยเด้อ
เรากด
ใจเย็นเลย
น
เด้อ
อนป้อมต้องกด
นิ้วกดเลย
And here it is, the stick they have been looking for so long. The family cannot be far away. But even then, the two tired old men continue to stumble about unsuccessfully, with the forest family right under their noses. Worn out by their walk, they go down to the river to have a wash and rest for a while. As his head clears with the cool river water, Lang looks up to see the Punan family right in front of him. The head of this family is Lei Wai. They have been on the move for the last 3 days looking for a better site to set up camp. But the area is quite devastated. Deforestation has left little in its wake. The situation got so critical that the original clan of 20 has already split into 2 in order to make the food go round. On their way through the forest, Lei Wai collects certain plants which have medicinal value. The Punans have a good knowledge of over 250 such plants and trade them with Chinese merchants and even the Dayaks. The Punan either apply the leaves directly to their bodies or chew them to extract the juice. But they have never been able to distill their healing properties into their pure form. This is why the medicinal plant often checked the symptoms of the disease, but rarely cured it outright. Lei Wai looks at the 2 old men carefully, unsure whether their unexpected arrival bodes well for the family. The children, skillful and agile, climb trees in search of leaves to supplement the evening meal. When there's no more meat, the Punan can survive for several weeks on forest plant life, such as banana tree saplings, berries, nuts and leaves. The Punan are hunter-gatherers, and it is their remarkable understanding of the rainforest, almost a kinship, that has sustained them until recent times. Punans communicate with each other by a sophisticated system of signs left in the forest. A notched twig or a pattern of leaves may signify what somebody is doing or intending to do, or may give the direction or distance of the camp. Lewai is very discreet and uses small leaf signs. In the old days, Lang and Unkit used large, much more visible branch markers than today. The Dayaks used a similar form of communication. For centuries, this dangerous game of signs has saved a lot of Punan necks, but has also led the headhunters to their prey. A suitable site has been found for building a small temporary shelter called a pondok. The adults construct the framework. Lewai finds some strong branches, while Unkit and Lang shave off pieces of rattan twine to bind them together. Meanwhile, the children collect banana leaves for the roof. It's no more than a year since Lewai lived in a prison village, as he calls it. He knows all about television and tin food, beer cans, nylon shirts, and poor quality sweets. Sick of the food and disillusioned with the poverty of the daily life, he found the courage to return home to the forest. Almost completed, the pondok is lacking one important detail. A sacred pole must be placed outside with an offering to the deities. Fear and respect for the spirits of the rainforest still runs high. Unkit leaves all the family can spare, an egg. If taken by the spirits, the family will be left in peace. According to Punan belief, the heavens are divided into two worlds, the world of illusion, which symbolizes the passage of time, and the world of moving space, which means the physical world in which they move about. The Punan must then keep a balance between the world of their dreams and the physical reality of their daily nomadic life. Hospitality is firmly rooted in the Punan way of life. Even in hard times, a Punan family will welcome the passing traveler. Lewai lies on his back, covering his eyes so as not to catch sight of the spirits passing overhead, and improvises a song for his guests. Welcome to our friends from the East. We shake your hands with great joy. We believe that the spirits sent you here as a good omen. As the deer loves his horns, so we love the forest where we were born. Even if the way ahead is hard, we will not forget you, and we hope the spirits will not forget us. We pray for a happy life. Punan reliance on the spirit world is evident in the importance they give to their dreams. Dreams are believed to come from the spirit world, and may therefore contain advice on how to approach the days to come. With this in mind, everybody starts telling their dreams of the night before. Li Ping speaks first. I was in a large village with many houses. I saw a tall, strong man, and I asked him for help. He said, "Yes, I will help you when I can, if I can." This means that Li Ping hopes for a better life. As an expression of hope, it is considered a good dream. Then it's Long Ho's turn. The child was drowning in the river. I dived in and pulled him out. When I pressed his stomach, a lot of water came out and he came back to life. This shows that Long Ho saw his family in danger and helped them to safety. Unkit says, I dreamt of the beautiful sacred waringi tree. The closer I got, the smaller it became. This is a bad dream, for the waringi may be seen as Li Wai's family. And then Lang says, I dreamt I was hunting. A big black snake was hanging from a branch. I stopped and it didn't bite me. Then I turned and walked back. This is also bad. Lang must go back to his normal life. Li Wai decides that the top priority of the day is food. The reserves are very low, and game is scarce in this area. He prepares a poison known only to the Punan. A part of the secret is a tanga leaf that he chews, then carefully wraps and puts by the fire to dry. It will reinforce the strength of the mixture. From this moment, the poison is extremely dangerous when mixed with blood. The poison does not kill its victim. It acts as an anesthetic, which means that later the meat can be eaten without risk. The Punans say that the spirits gave them this poison because they are wise and made good use of their weapons. Meanwhile, the women and children go down to the river to prepare the Punans' staple food. Long Ho produces a section of sago, a particular kind of palm tree that grows up to 15 meters high. The plant's inner fibers are packed with starch, which the Punan extract and eat. Li Ping is typically wise and prudent. She wants to make sure that everyone eats tonight. But she's too old to take care of the first part of the preparation. She must be at least 40. Long Han gets stuck with the tough job of separating the fibers from the bark, bringing the mallet crashing down only centimeters from her toes. But she knows exactly what she's doing. Her toes will doubtless survive. The Punan know the forest and its resources perfectly. Sago is just one example. They also know about the gaharu, a rare vine from which a precious perfume can be extracted, a good way to make a little money. Long Ho has a fortune in his hands, although the merchants will only give him a few rupees for his find. The hunting party is already deep into the forest. Progress is slow because of the need for silence. Lei Wai looks for the best possible hunting ground. He is used to making his way steadily and quietly through the vines and low branches. Clumping along, Unkit has clearly lost much of his youthful agility. But Lang has lost none of his old reflexes. Eyes and ears alert, his whole body is tense with excitement. In short, Lang is back with the old life he loved. Beside the river, Li Ping now stretches a thin cloth over her frame of branches. The fibers are placed into a rattan sheet bound up at either end, and water from the river is poured through. Naturally, no one knows whether the water is drinkable or not. It could easily contain any number of diseases for which the Punan have no cure. But that's forest life. It's always been that way. Having spotted some game, the hunters try their luck. Lang is the first to shoot. He misses. Unkit follows suit and misses again. Over to Lei Wai. Back to Unkit. Lang, and again and again. The huntsmen blow their lungs out, but today it's to no avail. The arrows are running out and the game bags are empty. The three men will have to walk back empty-handed. Li Ping has nearly finished. The water has drawn the starch out of the sago fiber and now drains through the cloth, leaving a small deposit of pinkish paste. Out of such a heavy trunk, she is left with barely 3 or 4 pounds of sago, which will have to make do for the whole family. Having promised Li Ping a feast of roasted meat, the great hunters now look rather humble. And Long Han finally dishes out spoonfuls of burning hot sago.
Inaw ba ini? Hindi na tayo beli. Beli dia inaw ni di.
Laki na pit ni iri. Belum nak manyat nada. Apa ada kau ini ni kahita?
The family has not eaten meat since the two visitors arrived. Lei Wai begins to think that the two old men could have something to do with it. Their dreams were bad yesterday, and they are clumsy in the forest. A decision must be made. The next morning, Unkit and Lang wake up to find the pondok deserted. Lei Wai's family has slipped away in the night, silently. For the two old men, the time has come to put back on their shirts and head home to the sun, the crops, and the rice, living in peace those who wish to walk in the forest shade, wear no shirt, and eat sago. Within 3 years, no Punan will be able to live in the forest. It will no longer be able to sustain them. And when the last of them are forced to leave, the rainforest will have lost its most faithful defenders. They will have disappeared long before we in the West can even think of an effective way of protecting their environment. So what hope can there be for the Punan themselves? Their loss is our loss. They could teach us so much.